Week 6 is upon us of the NFL season, and we are back for Elite and Value Plays Week 6. Week 5, I hope you guys watch this video because we just hit it out of the park with Carson Wentz. Emphasized him. I was most heavily weighted on Carson Wentz than any player that I can remember since I started playing GPPs and daily fantasy. Must have had him in, I think, about 31% of my lineups. He put up 31 points. As you remember, we stacked him with everyone. So I stacked him with Ertz, stacked him with Aguilar on the home run play, and Torrey Smith on the home run play. And, that led to a pretty good week. It was not a GPP Millionaire Maker winning week. It wasn't a 50, 25, 100, $200,000 week, which some of our members had, by the way. But still solid. Other kind of good plays. We had said Dak would be the chalk, and he did exactly what we would thought. 30 points. Rodgers, 24 points. Hoyer was another value pick for us. I like Wentz better, but Hoyer with 25 points, had him in a bunch of lineups. And all those went stacks. At running back, we went very heavily with Ellington and Duke Johnson. Cheap plays, 15 and 17 points respectively. So again, not enough to win the tournament. Melvin Gordon was obviously the play there. At tight end, the wide receiver, we had Antonio and T.Y. Hilton, phenomenally strong weeks, along with the stacks with Wentz. At tight end, it was a killer for me. That was really the difference maker from winning a little bit to having a huge week with Wentz, which was Evan Ingram being shut out with 0 points for the Giants. That just was that sucked. Happens. Didn't work out very well, and it hurt anyone lineup who used him. And then defense, we made up a lot though because we had the Dolphins heavily weighted, 20 points. Phenomenal performance, number one defense, and the Ravens at 12 points. Lions were kind of a bust at 3. So 2 of the 3 defenses we recommended were really strong, and if you diversified, you did well. So we have put up an awesome new video on gppmaster.com of a bunch of our winners that we've now won, who have won now. Our members have now won over $2 million, and it's a pretty cool video Bill put together. So make sure you check that out and share it with your friends. Help your friends win a GPP. We'd appreciate it. On to week 6. So this is, again, continuing the theme of weeks 1 through 5, diversity in quarterbacks, but there is a difference this week. 5 that I'm heavily weighting, 5 that I'm going to have in some exposure, but lightly weighted. So the 5 that I'm heavily weighting are Matt Ryan at 7,000, Deshaun Watson at 6,700, Kirk Cousins 6,800, Rivers at 6,000, and Breeze at 7,200. And the 5 others are going to be Palmer, Winston, Flacco, which we'll come back to at 5,400, Alex Smith, and Brady. Let's talk about Matt Ryan. So number one team total on the board, 28.8 points the Falcons are expected to score. Miami is 29th against the pass and actually pretty good against the run specifically. Ryan is due. Home game, in the dome, no weather issues. He will not be chalk. He will not be chalk. He will not be 0 owned, but he will be relatively lower owned, I think, than some of the other guys we talk about or other options. And he's in the middle at that 7,000 price, still expensive, but way off of Brady's 8,300, for example. Big week for him, I expect. Want to keep an eye on his injuries. We'll come back to who to stack him with, but I do think he has the chance to break out here and put up a 30-point week. Deshaun Watson, look, he will be chalky. He's playing Cleveland. The risk there is for a blow-up, but Tennessee put 57 up against the Titans. You got to have some exposure to him, even if he's chalky. This is a case where you play him with Fuller and him with Hopkins and take your shot in the blowout. 28.3 total, and the guy's putting up, points that you can't. If you don't have him in some lineups and he does what he's been doing, you can't win. You have to have him. So you have to have some exposure to him until he proves otherwise or cools off. Kirk Cousins is kind of like Ryan. A high total of 28 against a crappy San Francisco, I think 26 ranked pass defense at home. The Redskins are playing well. Rob Kelly is out for this game. So that leaves the rookie running back and Chris Thompson. And Chris Thompson tends to catch the ball more than he tends to run the ball. So I just think Cousins is in a really good spot. And again, like Ryan, has the 30-point potential that he's kind of been missing. It's been closer than Ryan, but missing. So Drew Brees is an interesting one. He has a high total. That's the highest total game on the board. The Lions defense has been just rock solid against the pass, but showed some cracks last week, as we learned. Look, Drew Brees at home is different than Drew Brees on the road. We know that. His stats and his matchups in this game statistically do not look great, and we do pay attention to that. But my gut intuition says Drew Brees has a big game at home and have to have some exposure to him there. He is pretty matchup proof in the dome. Phillip Rivers against the 30th ranked Oakland pass defense. Oakland is 31st against wide receiver ones, 26 against wide receiver twos, and 32nd against running backs catching balls out of the backfield, which means Melvin Gordon. A lot of Melvin Gordon. So I think Rivers is a nice play, even though they're 1-4 there, and he's relatively cheap. And then, as I said, I'm going to have high-end exposure to Brady because, again, he's put up 400 yards twice. Okay, 5 touchdowns. He's hurt. His left shoulder's bothering him. He's on the injured list. The Jets have been better than people think, but he's Tom Brady. And again, you got to at least have a lineup or two with him in there. And then on the low end, I'm coming back to my well last week. We were half right last week. So Joe Flacco, again, will at $5,400, you can afford a lot of really good players around him. So he's at home against not a great defense. Terrence West is out, so their primary grinded out running back is out. And Flacco, every year, we said it last week, we put up a 4 or 5 touchdown game. He has the deep threat in Wallace. So I'll have a little bit of exposure to Flacco. Moving on to running back, this is an interesting week. To me, this is a running back week over receiver. I think you can get value at receiver and pay up at running back. I think you're going to see most players get value at running back and pay up for receiver. And I think it's a flip this week. So I think you're going to see a lot of McKinnon at 4,000 and change, and I'm fading him completely. Not a believer yet in that game. I'm just not. And I think you'll see a lot of Elijah McGuire for the Jets. And I know the Patriots have been awful on defense and awful against running backs. And if Powell is out and Forte is questionable, McGuire's a rookie, but he hasn't done much yet. He's had one big play. And the Patriots, I continue to believe Bill Belichick's defense will play better than statistically they're showing right now. Maybe that's because I'm a homer, but I do. So I am going to be very high and very targeting, even though it's $8,200 on DraftKings, Hunt. I just think this Kansas City has got a great opportunity here. They're playing a very strong pass defense, top 3 in Pittsburgh to date, but a 15th ranked running defense. They're without Conley, second receiver, out for the year. Albert Wilson, their third receiver, is questionable. Kelsey is questionable. This is going to be a Kareem Hunt win or lose game. And look, the guy's ceiling is massive, and he had a rough week last week, so he'll be lower owned in this matchup at that price. And I'm going back to the well on him, and similarly on Gurley, who had his worst week last week. And again, playing a defense that is the Rams' 31st against the run. Gurley's priced down. I mean, $7,700. He's well below Bell or Hunt. And again, other than last week, he's put up monstrous ceilings, and he's going to be the focus. So I think you can do a Hunt Gurley stack and fit some value around that with guys like Flacco and Rivers. Obviously, Fournette has been an absolute beast, has a pretty good matchup, not a great matchup, a pretty good matchup, and will be the focal point of the Jaguars. And again, you got to have some exposure to him. He will be chalky. I think Fournette will be higher owned than Hunt and Gurley. So that's where I kind of jump away, but it will have some exposure to him. As far as value, love Chris Thompson this week. I just do. Kelly's out. Chris Thompson, all it takes is one play to make your whole lineup. We've seen it. I mean, he won someone the Millionaire Maker in week 3, I think it was, with that 74-yard run. He's playing a team that is 22nd San Francisco against running backs catching the ball. Okay. He only has him and the rookie at running back. I think you'll see more of him and the snap count than you normally do. He'll be on the field for more plays than he normally is. So I do like him there. And then the other one, I do love I love both Atlanta running backs. Atlanta, again, tough to run in this game statistically, but absolutely exposed catching the ball out of the backfield in that game defensively. And I like Freeman and Coleman. You got to pick your poison. Use them both. I'm going to use them both with Ryan. Trying to move along here because we're
taking long this week in this video. To wide receiver, so start with stacks. Keep an eye on Julio's injury, but Julio is expensive, but he'll be lower owned if he's kind of questionable and he's been hurt. And, he has an opportunity in this game for 3 touchdowns with Ryan. So I will have a Ryan Julio stack, and I love a Ryan Taylor Gabriel stack in this game. Mohamed Sanu is out, so Gabriel is not been great, but he's that same thing, that one play, 19-point kind of opportunity. He's not a PPR machine, but he'll get more targets in this game. He'll probably be receiver number 2 in this game. But then again, I love the Coleman because of Sanu being out. It elevates Tevin Coleman and again Freeman. I think you can stack each of those with Ryan and really use 4 Ryan lineups with each of those possibilities. Deshaun Watson, I'll stack him with Hopkins and I'll stack him with Fuller. You get a huge value boost. Fuller, he's almost $3,000 cheaper on DraftKings than Hopkins. Hopkins has been unbelievable, but Fuller's had 19 and 20 points in his 2 weeks back. He's getting the ball. He's getting targeted. He's scoring touchdowns. So I'm okay with that, especially with Watson, because if Watson throws to Hopkins, you're going to get that upside anyway. I'll be using Will Fuller in non-Watson lineups a lot. Cousins, I'm going to stack him with Thompson. Sneaky there. And Jamison Crowder at $4,000 is also due. And if Cousins has a big game, Crowder could have 7, 8, 9, 10 receptions in this game and hopefully a touchdown. Breeze, I think you got to watch what happens with Willie Snead. If Snead is limited or out in this game still, then I think obviously Michael Thomas, but he has a tough matchup with Slade guarding him. So a great jump off there. You have 4 options, right? You have Kamara coming out of the backfield. He looks great. No more Adrian Peterson, so it's going to be Kamara and Irving. I think Tony Fleener is a sleeper here. He's a low floor, so he's risking. But 28th against tight ends, the Lions. 28th against tight ends. So that's a go-to. And then you have these kind of Ted Ginn with the big play and Coleman. So you can kind of play around and stack Breeze in a few different places. Rivers, I think it's Keenan Allen and obviously Melvin Gordon because we said he's going to catch the ball in this game. Flacco with Wallace, period. Wallace had 19 points last week, 17 the week before. He is now emerging. One big play away from a 100-yard game. He's been pretty solid the last 2 weeks. He's cheap at 4,300, and if Flacco has finally a recovery game, which I keep predicting will happen at some point, Wallace will be a benefactor of that for sure. Outside of stacks, Crabtree is somehow down under $6,000, and Derek Carr is starting this game. I don't get it. Something's off on that. It's a good matchup, so I will have Crabtree as a standalone wide receiver, not in a stack. I think he has a chance. Look, every week he can put up 2 or 3 touchdowns. He has a great floor. At some point, Amari Cooper will emerge. I'm not going to ride him until he does. I think, and on the Arizona game, also a great matchup. Jaron Brown is the guy I would favor there. Nelson and John Brown are still banged up. Fitz is Fitz. He'll be high owned. But Jaron Brown has big play potential and 20 to 25-point potential every week. We talked about Will Fuller and Hopkins and Wallace, and then Taylor Gabriel. The other guy to keep an eye on, Albert Wilson for the Chiefs. If he plays, and he's, I didn't go back to the other quarterbacks I would use, the other guys, but if I would have actually think he'll be targeted pretty nicely. He's actually quietly put up double digits almost every week. He's a little hurt, so keep an eye. But with Conley out, he'll be the wide receiver 2 over there. Jumping over to tight end, tough this week. I think everyone will be on Kittles because he won people big money last week for San Francisco. Tough game at Washington. I'm fading Kittles. I do like Njoku with Hogan playing quarterback, the rookie for Cleveland. He's just an amazing athlete if you saw his catch last week. I like Fleener with a lot of upside, but again, a dangerous floor. He can come away with no points. He has that Ingram possibility. And look, Zach Miller will be the leading targeted receiver for the Bears, or, leading targets for the Bears with the rookie quarterback in there, with Mitchell Trubisky in there. And, Zach Miller, solid, steady tight end play. I think doesn't have the upside of Fleener or Njoku, though. And on defense, 2 plays for me this week. That's it. The Redskins at home against San Francisco. Love that pick. I'm looking for the Redskins to have a very big day defensively. And the Ravens against the Bears and the rookie quarterback. But I like the Redskins 1, Ravens 2 there. Ravens are more expensive. Good luck. Have a great week. Watch that video. And we'll see you back on GPP Master for updates.